Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of Glam Metal Gems. This is where I like to take a deeper look into the genre. Bands and albums that ran under the radar, slipped through the cracks, didn't really get the recognition that they deserve. Try to shine a light on these bands and albums for you guys so that hopefully they get brought to a wider audience. If you've never heard of them, I highly recommend them. These are albums that I really love out of my collection that I just feel have never gotten the due that they deserve. And hopefully we can help do some of that here today with this episode. Before we get started though, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you too can stay up to date on really cool episodes just like this with Glam Metal Gems. So I'm going to do this in order of release by year. So not saying that one of these is better than the other because I think they're all really good here, but also just a little context and time frame. It's always good knowing when these things dropped and what was going on around them. So first one up happens to be the band that I'm wearing here, Torpedo Surprise Attack, 1989. It is their debut studio album release. This one here produced by Joe Hardy, who worked with ZZ Top among others. There's a lot of good swagger on this album. I think it was one of the things that really brought the band's attention to me. Frontman Anthony Corder, I think, just sounds amazing. It's got one of those really unique, distinct vocals that for me at least, I can pick him out as soon as I hear him. And that's exactly the way I felt the first time I heard this band. The album itself, at the time at least, I didn't know much about them or the band, or I should say the band or the album itself. I had heard the song Walking Shoes. I, of course, liked the album cover. Album covers are always a cool thing. I mean, in the sense that if it captures your eye, you know, and it pulls you in, it can speak volumes about what that music is supposed to be and so forth. And this one here, I think, summed it up really well. So, of course, I was attracted to that album cover. I liked the song Walking Shoes. I bought the album itself, and I'm so glad that I did because it's just amazing from start to finish. The band would go on to release another album 3 years later in 1992, Wild America. And that one's got a much more stripped down approach. And so a lot of people will say they don't think that this band is actually or should be considered a glam metal band, but in fact that's the era that they came out, how they were promoted. Their Wikipedia site even says as much, but that's just the way that it is. And there was, of course, a lot of different subgenres and things within the glam metal genre itself. They did those two albums, and they did record a third one at the time, but it didn't come out till many years later. Revolution Day wouldn't come out until 2011, and ultimately the band did reform and release Bastards of Beale. So they do have present day stuff. They're back together, and they're currently in the studio working on another brand new album. So if you're a fan of Torpedo, there is a lot to love by the band, plus there should be some new stuff around the corner any day now, in fact, because they have released a couple singles from it too. Okay, next one up, XYZ self-titled release, debut studio album from this band out on the Enigma Records label, featuring frontman Terry Illouz, who would go on to front Great White in the 2010s, releasing 2 albums with the band. In fact, I'll put them in order here so that first one and second one for you guys. So if you do like XYZ and you didn't know that Terry Illouz went on to front Great White, you've got that there as well. This album here from XYZ is produced by none other than Don Dokken of Dokken fame. An opening track on here, Maggie, which is one of my favorite songs on the album. I remember hearing it on the radio, even though I don't think it was a single. Sounds a lot like Dokken, like a lost Dokken track, in fact. But it's the second song on the album, Inside Out, that was the lead single off of this that you might know. The song is called Inside Out. It is a killer track. Definitely, if you're going to check out one track, listen to that one on here and see what you think. There was a second single released, although I never heard it on radio or saw it on MTV or anything like that at the time. It's track number 3. What Keeps Me Loving You. And it's a great track, but just one of those ones that I think really fell under the radar for whatever reason. The band would go on to release a second album, Hungry, in 1991. It's excellent, although I love the debut even more. And then they did reform some years later, and in 2003 put out an album called Letter to God, but that really sounds nothing like these first two albums here. Currently, though, the band has reunited again and is back in the studio working on a fourth album. No word on what that one's going to sound like yet, but we could have some new XYZ soon. Okay, next one up, Cato, Don't Come Easy from 1991. I absolutely love this band here, produced by Richie Zito, who worked with White Lion, Poison, among many others, Cheap Trick even, Heart. So just lots of cool artists that person worked with. Again, trying to give you some context as to who that is and why such a famous producer might work with these guys here. Each song on this one is a real standout song. From the time I heard it, at least, it just grabbed me. Now, these guys are a little bit more on the melodic hard rock side than the straight up more sleazy sounding glam metal that a lot of you associate with it, the LA Guns and stuff like that. But this is great stuff. And I never saw anything on MTV from these guys at the time, but I did hear the first track, Forever Young, on the radio. To this day, that's still my favorite track. I immediately fell in love with it, went out and bought the album, and I'm so glad I did. Now, 3 years later, the band would release a follow-up album, Strength in Numbers, in 1994, but as we all know, it was way too far beyond the glam metal scene for anyone to really care, and so that one sunk without a trace. And at that point, they replaced their frontman, and they put out in 1995 this album here, which really looks nothing like what you would expect a glam metal band to look like, as it's got a throwback to the 70s kind of feel. But the person singing is Steve Augeri from Tall Stories, another great glam metal band from the early era. And of course, he would go on to front Journey. So Cato's had a really interesting history, and definitely worth checking out their whole catalog. But if nothing else, make sure you check out this album here, Don't Come Easy. It is so good. Ultimately, the band would reunite again later on and release 2 more albums. And hopefully they'll do something again soon, but it's been a number of years since we've gotten anything from them. All right, next one up. Heavy Bones' self-titled release from 1992. I have shown this one in reference to another one in some other context. I have shown this band, Cats and Boots album, and when talking about this, the frontman of this group, Joel Ellis, is in this group. So this group here is kind of like a little mini super group, because we got Joel Ellis from Cats and Boots singing with the band. We got Frankie Bannerly on drums from Quiet Riot, and he played with Wasp, among many others. Gary Hoey on guitars, who became more famous as a solo artist than what he was doing here with this band, and Rex Tennyson on bass, who I'm not sure what else he might have done, but definitely a very competent bass player at that, joining in with these guys here. Now, this album is also produced by Richie Zito. So again, you've got him having produced the previous Cato, having worked with this, and as I mentioned, Richie working with bands like Heart, Poison, White Lion, and so forth. He was a very cool producer at that time. I've just always found that pretty much anything Richie Zito touched, I like. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, but a lot of times I will look to see who's in the band, who's doing production, stuff like that, to try to find out whether it'll be up my alley or not. Now, the only radio single that I know from this band is the song 4 a.m. TM, which was sung as 4 a.m. in the morning. And great heavy song with some killer riffing from Gary Hoey on it, and it's got the classic dirty sleazy vocals from Joel Ellis. If you like Cats and Boots, you're gonna love this one here, Heavy Bones. While this is the one and only album that Heavy Bones has done, Cats and Boots has been put back together and apparently working on a brand new album, so hopefully we're gonna see something new from Joel pretty soon. All right, and next one to talk about is 21 Guns Salute from 1992. debut studio album, another supergroup that didn't really take off, unfortunately. It did feature Scott Gorham on guitars from Thin Lizzy, Black Star Riders, Mike Sturgis on drums coming from Asia, or I should say really going on to Asia after this. Tommy Laverty on vocals coming from A440, and Leif Johansson on bass, who didn't really ever have a home, but he played on a lot of different albums from different bands, including a-ha's 1986 album. And this one here is a very melodic band, but of course lumped in with the glam metal movement, so similar to Cato, but maybe even a little more melodic than that. And I think, you know, unfortunately, with it being 1992 when this album was coming out, just a little too late in the game for anything that was considered part of the glam metal movement, but not late enough to be taken seriously as part of any other movement as well. And so it just really ran under the radar. Didn't get a fair shake, but so good. Never really heard anything about this band at the time. I kind of you know, saw it in advertisements and things and wondered what the attraction was to it. Of course, years later when I found out Scott Gorham was part of the lineup, that sort of let me know. The band would go on to release a second album called Nothing's Real, with changing the front man from Thomas Laverty to Sully. And Sully came from Sons of Angels, another band that I have featured as part of the Glam Metal Gems series. So if you like Sons of Angels, definitely worth checking out the second 21 Guns album. But do check out the first one, because this one's amazing. And if you liked A440 and always wanted more from them, you got that front man going on to sing with this group here. So a lot of cool ways that you can think about these bands and albums and whatnot. But all in all, 5 really cool slabs of glam metal, these gems that ran under the radar that hopefully now can get a little more of a boost recognition based on you know, shows like this. So there you go, Glam Metal Gems, episode number 11. Hopefully you enjoyed this. As the number points out, 11. There are 10 episodes before this, and as I talked about with some of the other ones, so I've covered a lot of different albums and bands that ran under the radar. But let me know which ones you like and so forth. And of course, we're leaving out the big bands. We're not talking about the Poisons, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard, stuff like that. We're trying to do the ones that were much more under the radar and bringing those to people's attention. So, all right, everyone, take care. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.